Hare Krishna. Can you hear voice? Am I audible? Is my voice audible? Okay, let's start. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We have been discussing from the second verse of Shri Siksastakam. Namna Makari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktihi Tatrarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadrishi Tabakrupa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midmiha Janinanuragaha. So even though Krishna has invested all his potencies in the holy names, but still Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that I am so unfortunate that I commit so much offenses that I don't have any taste for chanting the holy names. So therefore, the unfortunate situation of the jiva who is not having attraction for the holy name is due to the offenses. So that is why we saw basically throughout Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, when it comes to instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to devotees, the consistent instruction is always chant the holy names and never commit offenses. But we can, as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, unless we diligently try to understand what these offenses are, what constitutes these offenses, what triggers these offenses, how do we protect ourselves from these offenses, and if we have already committed these offenses, how do we rectify these offenses? Unless we understand these principles, then it is practically impossible to avoid these offenses. And if we don't avoid these offenses, if we don't endeavor in that direction, then our chanting will always remain offensive chanting only. And by that offensive chanting, it is not possible for us to even come to the stage of Nama Bas. What to speak of Shuddha Nam, and then still further what to speak of Bhavanam and Premanam, which are very high stages. So the primary endeavor should be to try to understand this Aparada Tattva very clearly. Because one aspect of Tattva Vibrama or bewilderment about the conclusions of the Shastras is Bhakti Pratikula Vastu Tattva Vibrama, is improper understanding of what is Pratikul for the practice of Bhakti. So this is very important that we understand this. So in this we started discussing about the 10 offenses, in which first we started discussing about Vaishnava Ninda, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy names of the Lord. So in this context, we discussed Ninda means animosity or malice. Okay. So then we saw the potency of a sadhu, especially Uttamadhikari, is that he is the carrier of Krishna's Samvit and Hladini Shakti. And when one comes in touch with him, that Samvit and Hladini Shakti infuses our heart also, and one can very quickly progress path of bhakti. So therefore, the foot dust, the foot wash, and the food remnants of the Vaishnavas are considered to be very, very powerful. But then who is a sadhu? The Shastras describe the sadhu to be having all these qualities of being merciful, tolerant, truthful, purified, and so on. But these are actually secondary qualities of a devotee. The primary quality is Krishneka Sharanam, exclusive surrender to Krishna. So if that quality is there, then the secondary qualities automatically follow the primary qualities. So therefore, uh, therefore it is, but the secondary qualities do not immediately follow, but they gradually follow. So mostly offenses are committed when we are unable to breach the external layer of conditioning of the devotees, in which many times the secondary qualities are not manifest. Favorable secondary qualities are not manifest, and unfavorable qualities which are related to the unfavorable conditioning, it is still manifest. Because anartha nivritti is very gradual process, and shubhada is also very gradual. Bestowal of auspicious good qualities is also a gradual process only. It starts from the stage of bhajana kriya, but attains perfection only at the stage of prema. So both anartha nivritti and manifestation of good qualities is a gradual thing. So till one reaches the higher stages of devotional service, it is quite possible that one may not see the manifestation of good qualities, and one may not see the absence of unfavorable qualities, which fall within the secondary qualities, even though the primary quality of Krishneka Sharanam may be there within the heart of that person. So when we don't see the externally the manifestation of good qualities, and when we, on the contrary, we see unfavorable qualities being present in devotees, then it causes commission of offenses. Okay. So like that. So he says that uh, but therefore commission of offenses to devotees is mostly attributed to these four reasons. Mainly we criticize devotees for these reasons. Either is caste by birth, even though we don't very explicitly do it, but still we may we may have um, a feeling of superiority in terms of, you know, like, oh, if he is born in a Brahmin family, he must be good. Or if he is born in India, he must be good. You know, these kind of prejudices we may carry, which are all on the bodily platform. So, if we may not explicitly criticize a devotee, at least that much we have sort of learned, but subtly we may feel that those who are born in a different country, or those who are born in a different caste, they are they are at least somewhat inferior. That kind of a prejudice we may have. Okay. And sometimes we may criticize devotees for previous sins or faults in this life. So in this life, prior to coming to bhakti, they might have committed some sins or faults. So for that also we may criticize devotees. Or sometimes an unpremeditated accidental act of sin. So we may criticize a person because of that. Or present traces of previous sinful activities. You know, like we saw the example of tobacco stained teeth. Even though the devotee has given up chewing tobacco now, but his prior, his previous of tobacco, we may hold that responsible to, we may hold that one to criticize a devotee like that. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even though all these conditions may be present in a Vaishnava, these are insubstantial grounds for criticism. Okay, and one who blasphemes a Vaishnava will be punished by Yamaraj. Okay. So and even if there appears some bad element or fault in a person, if he has the chief characteristic, which is surrender to Krishna, he must be considered a sadhu, and he should be respected by all. Okay. Um, so when one has developed a small taste for chanting the holy name, then the chanting will destroy the influence of all sins, and some remnants in the form of vasanas may still remain, but they will completely vanish by the influence of the holy name. When one is diligently trying to chant the holy name and diligently trying to avoid the offenses, very soon the remaining offenses, the remaining vasanas will also go away. And therefore, Krishna says, Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. Very soon he will become very dharmic, like that. So then we saw the result of Vaishnava Ninda. A person, when he continuously commits Vaishnava Ninda, then eventually he is no longer protected by Krishna. He is handed over to the uh, mm, law of karma, and law of karma takes care of him. And any kind of activities that he performs, he gets hellish punishment for that. So, and we saw asatsanga. The main cause of sadhuninda is asatsanga, especially asatsanga with people with a different value system. Okay. One thing is, of course, materialistic value system. As devotees, we are careful about, this materialistic value system. We will not subscribe to it. But the problem for devotees, especially those from India, is that they may very easily be swayed by value systems which are either Vedic or pseudo Vedic, but non-devotional, non-pure devotional. So they seem very, very attractive actually, but they may not be pure devotion. That is why, if you don't know, actually, a few years back, a person who was a very, very known to be a very famous, dharmic person. He was into big scale cow protection and all that. So he was not directly a devotee as such, but he was very famous for cow protection. So at that time, he was at the whole temple congregation. Everyone was like sort of getting really swayed. In fact, he was invited, and he literally sat on the Vyasasana and spoke about cow protection. When Maharaj came to know this, I mean, this is all counselors group, so I can share this with you. Probably you already know about this, and you may know much more details about this, but I'm just sharing. Maharaj called Sanat Kumar Prabhu and few other leaders, and they told, get rid of this person. This is very dangerous for our congregation. He told this. Get rid of this person. This is very dangerous for our congregation. The things that he was speaking, of course, he was not speaking anything in one sense seriously wrong. He was talking about cow protection and taking care of cows. But in doing that, he also spoke explicitly and very strongly about desi cows. Only desi cows, and the other cows are like, they are not cows. They are like pigs or something like that. So this and for many other reasons, but I mean, that this influence is still very strongly there, even Even though this has happened many years back, still the influence of this is there even now. Of course, we are not denying the medical effects of uh, the milk from the cows and all that. But still, anyways, so Maharaj called the senior brahmachari leaders and he told that get rid of this person. This is dangerous for our congregation. And of course, he was not like he was speaking any materialistic theory or anything. Okay. But this is also asat sangha. For devotees, anything which is non-pure devotional is asat sangha. But the problem is this has become so deep rooted in our system right now that if you say like this, you will be criticized as being a fanatic person, a radical Vaishnava. You know, so people will call you, you're radicalizing Vaishnavism. This is what uh, they will see, you're radicalizing Vaishnavism. By becoming too exclusivistic, by being too exclusivistic. So, but the point is, we don't want to be exclusivistic, but we should know where to be exclusive and where to be inclusive. Many times we become inclusive where we should be exclusive, and we become exclusive where we should become inclusive. And this creates a lot of problems actually. Where we are supposed to be, when we are with outsiders, then we should be inclusive, so that so that outsiders are also inspired to come and be a part of us. But when we are with devotees, we have to be little inclusive. When it comes to philosophical chastity, and when it comes to qualification to sit on the Vyasasana and speak, there we don't compromise, because that asan is meant for Vyasadev, and it is meant to glorify Srimad Bhagavatam, nothing less than that. If you have anything less to discuss about, you can sit on a chair. The Vyasasana is not meant for that. And when we are sitting in front of Gopinath ji, we are supposed to glorify Gopinath ji and not anything else. Okay. So that is where the problem comes. So where we should be, where we should inclusive, we end up being exclusive by criticizing other religions, making a very clear difference between Abrahamic religions and non-Abrahamic religions. Oh, Abrahamic religions are like this, but the Vedic religions are like this, and then speaking in ways which will just incite communal hatred. So where we are supposed to be little inclusive, that telling that everyone can take up to bhakti. But when it comes to Siddhanta, where we should become very where we should be very exclusive, we invite people, all kinds of people, and make them sit on the Vyasasana and make them speak things which are not connected to Srimad Bhagavatam. So where charity is required, we end up being unchaste in the name of being, we should not be radical Vaishnavas. And where we are actually supposed to be little inclusive and not unnecessarily antagonize people and create hatred for other people, we end up speaking in ways where devotees, rather than meditating favorably about Krishna, they end up unfavorably meditating about Muslims and Christians, like that. So these kind of things, which generally come through this kind of Vedic, pseudo Vaishnava, pseudo Vedic, Hindu type of outfits, generally create these kind of, this is one, of course, there could be many other also, which create alternative value systems, because of which one develops, offensive mentality. And we end up oh, even actually not devotees are only like this. You see, non-devotees are better. Like that, we start feeling over a period of time. And that kind of mentality is generally due to asatsanga. So anyways, so and then of course asatsanga is also another type of asatsanga is associating with the opposite sex with a desire for enjoyment. And these two types of asatsanga also we discussed as the main cause of sadhu ninda. We discussed this last time. And then we discussed how to treat a Vaishnava. How we should treat a Vaishnava. One should eagerly take the dust from the feet of a Vaishnava, regardless of whether he is a Grihastha or a sannyasi. So there is no question of external considerations, but one should treat a Vaishnava according to the level of his advancement and to the degree of his attraction to the holy name, like that. And one should not consider the other aspects, the secondary aspects, like that. So, and then, yeah, one should definitely be able to understand and evaluate the advancement of a Vaishnava. One should be able to understand whether he is a Kanishta, Madhyama, or Uttama. And accordingly, one should give respect. That is very important. So therefore, the typical activities of a real sadhu or a Madhyamadikari is to avoid sadhu ninda and to take association of sadhu, serve the sadhus, give knowledge to the innocent jivas, and perform nama sankirtan. So in this way, we should be engaged. So then we also discussed how, if the offense has already been committed, how do we rectify the offense? The rectification of the offense starts by repentance. Oh, why did I do it? I really did a wrong thing. I have committed an offense to a saintly person. And this repentance definitely to a great extent neutralizes the offense. But that is all, that alone is not sufficient. One should further seek nullify the offense by resolving to come in front of the Vaishnava, falling at his feet, and satisfying him by offering him obeisances, praises, and respects. But sometimes the offense may be so grievous that the Vaishnava's anger may not go away. In that way, if that is the case, then in great remorse, one should consider himself extremely unfortunate, and he should take, such a person should with great repentance take exclusive shelter of chanting the holy names. And by the power of the holy name, gradually over a period of time, the offense will be delivered. Okay, will be removed. But one should not say, oh, I think this is easier. I will take exclusive shelter of the holy name. Why should I approach the Vaishnava, fall at his feet, beg for forgiveness? These things and all are not needed. So sometimes, वैष्णव भी कभी कभी बहुत भाव खा लेते हैं, तो कभी मानते हैं कभी नहीं मानते हैं, तो उससे अच्छा I will directly take shelter of the holy name. One should not think like that, because this kind of mentality it enhances the offenses more. So one should nor should one think that the holy name differentiates between the type of sadhus when it comes to sadhu ninda. One should not say that, he is not a very great devotee anyways. I know what all he has done. I know his whole history. So this is not a real sadhu only. So by offending him, it is not really an offense. Someone should not think like that. We will, a person cannot minimize his offense by pointing out some defect in the devotee, because this is natural. When we make a mistake, then we feel guilty. when we feel guilty, we wish to, guilt is a very huge burden. We always want to get rid of guilt. And one of the prominent ways of getting rid of guilt is philosophizing. So in this case, we philosophize by telling, oh, he is not a very great devotee, he has so many bad qualities. Huh? So I was not criticizing him, he was, it is so like that. So by pointing, the more defect we point out in a devotee, we think that that much it sort of validates our act of criticizing that person. We feel it gives us actually a feel of relief from guilt. But this is a very poor way of uh, removing the guilt. Actually, this is a very dangerous way of removing the guilt, because we are we are we are all the more committing more and more offenses than to rectify it. It is like taking bath in a tub of liquor. To if someone's body has been touched by liquor and he wants to wash his body, he jumps into a tub of liquor and tries to cleanse his body by that. That is not going to rectify the problem. It's going to compound the problem all the more. And sometimes it may even happen that a serious offense has been committed against a Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava, because his magnanimity, he forgives, or he does not take offense only. Okay. So one thinks that, he didn't take any offense, so why should I go and beg for forgiveness? No. Even though, the Vaishnava may not take offense, but Krishna does not spare such a person. So therefore, one cannot escape the, going and physically begging for forgiveness, falling at the feet and serving that Vaishnava. Like, and one should not say, you see the case of Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai not only offended Nityananda Prabhu, they literally tried to kill Nityananda Prabhu. But in return, Nityananda Prabhu gave them Krishna Prem. So this is real Vaishnava. Real Vaishnava means he will not take any offense. And if we offend him, he will accept the offense and give us Krishna Prem. So therefore, don't worry. It does not really matter whether you serve a Vaishnava or offend a Vaishnava, you will get Krishna Prem. This is not the right philosophy. So one should not take these kind of examples to justify their offenses. I think this is where we ended our discussion last time. So before we continue today's discussion, if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share as you can please go ahead. We will take that and then we will continue today's discussion. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything? Yes, I think I have a problem with my earphones. Just give me a second. I will try to fix it. Give me just half a minute. I will see if I can fix it or not. Yes, Vraj Sundari Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I was just thinking about this example from Chaitanya Charitamrita of Devanand Pandit offending Srivas Thakur. So, um, like one performs this offense of Sadhu Ninda, one begs for forgiveness, like that. So I was just thinking that Devanand Pandit, uh, he offended Srivas Thakur, but I'm not sure whether he begged for forgiveness, but then he served Vakreshwar Pandit, and thus Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave him. So I was just trying to understand uh, how it is that you offend one Vaishnava and then uh, offering service to other Vaishnava is that how um, things
Yeah,
can.
he did serve Vakreshwar Pandit, but whether he did beg forgiveness to, he did not immediately beg for forgiveness from Srivas Thakur,
Yeah.
but whether later he did beg for forgiveness or not and amend his mistakes or not, I don't think that is explicitly mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he
Hmm.
must have probably done it all. That's my
Yeah.
understanding.
Because it is definitely mentioned that because of his service rendered to Vakreshwar Pandit, Mahaprabhu was pleased and then he was forgiven. So
Yeah, yeah, that must have been the reason. But
hmm.
additionally, by serving Vaishnavas, definitely you understand your mistakes also, and
Mhm.
definitely he must have uh, he must have been forgiven by, he must have begged forgiveness from Srivas Thakur also, uh, even though it is not explicitly mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I mean,
Hmm.
says that by his service to Vakreshwar Pandit, uh, he got he was his offense was rectified. But
Hmm.
I don't think Chaitanya Charitamrita says his service to Akreshwar Pandit, despite his not having begged for forgiveness from Shivas Thakur, his offense was forgiven. You know, that kind of an explicit
That's
statement.
not.
Yeah. So my understanding is, if you understand the importance of Vaishnava Seva, then he must have understood, by the association of Vaishnavas, he must have understood the dangers of committing Vaishnava Parad also, and he must have done something to rectify the offense. But even though it may not be explicitly mentioned there, or it could have been like a special mercy case when, like Jaga and Madai, when Nityanand Prabhu begged for them. So, like that, it could a special case like that. Or my understanding is maybe he must have begged for forgiveness and tried to rectify the situation with Srivas Thakur himself. One of the two.
Okay. No, I was just thinking one should not uh, learn it like this, that sometimes you offend somebody and it's really very difficult to approach that person, and then one should not think that okay,
Yeah.
it's
See, that
difficult
is why
here.
that is why it is very important that we stick to the lessons given by the acharyas,
Hmm.
um, uh, even when it comes to uh, even when it comes to learning lessons from past times, actually.
Hmm.
Because just because um, you you hear a pastime happening in a particular way, and many times what happens is we use our experiential logic to pastimes, and
Hmm.
we call it as philosophical speculation. This is not mental speculation. मेंटल स्पेकुलेशन थोड़ी कर रहा हूँ. अभी क्या है, जो भागवतम में तो ऐसा ही पास टाइम हुआ ना, तो ऐसा ही पास टाइम है. वो पास टाइम से हम क्या लर्न कर सकते हैं? सो मेनी टाइम्स वी डिराइव मेनी मेनी लेसन्स फ्रॉम शास्त्र बेस्ड पास टाइम्स, and many times we think that this is philosophical speculation. This is a very big misconception, actually. This is actually another type of mental speculation only, and sometimes it may be a more dangerous type of mental speculation, because many times they may think that this is the opinion of the acharyas. This becomes a problem because you're quoting a pastime and you're telling lessons and sitting on the Vyasasan. Many times people tend to think that, oh, these must be the lessons given by the acharyas, but they may not be. Actually, when we use experiential logic, to derive lessons based on past time, it is still mental speculation only, and it is not philosophical speculation. Because philosophical speculation can be applied only by that person who is very deep rooted in Shastra Yukti. Shastra Yukti means the the logic of the Shastras. Shastre Yuktau cha Nipuna. So when he has that Naipunya in Shastra Yukti, the logic of the Shastras, only such persons can actually derive lessons from past times, especially. Otherwise, some lessons may be incidentally correct. We don't deny that point. Incidentally, that lesson may be given by some acharyas, but ideally, one should stick to the lessons given by the acharyas. Even though from you look at the past time explicitly, it may seem very clear. Yeah, this is what happened. What happened? Jagai and Madai, did they beat Nityanand Prabhu or not? Yes, they did. Did they break the pot of liquor on his head or not? Yes, they did. Did they get Krishna Prema or not? Yes, they did. So therefore, in conclusion, the greater is the devotee whom you offend, the greater is the benefit you get in return. So this is a typical application of pratyaksha based anuman to a shastric pastime. So many times, in our case, it may not be so explicitly bad, uh, but sometimes it may be very subtly, like say for example, one of the common things which are often misquoted by our devotees. I will tell one example from Chaitanya Charitamrita and one example from Srimad Bhagavatam. One is from Bharat Maharaj's case, that look, even a person at the stage of bhava can fall down to such a degree that he will not get even a human birth. He will get an animal. So, this is because was Bharat Maharaj at the stage of bhava? Yes. Did he get a deer birth? Yes. So there is no misquoting of the pastime itself, but the lesson derived is wrong because it is not in line with the Shastra Yukti, with the logic of the Shastras. Because the real fact is that what to speak of a person at the stage of bhava, even a sadhaka, a mere sadhaka, even if he remembers a deer or a dog at the time of his death, he will still get a human birth only. This is what the Shastras say. Neha Vikramanashosti Pratyavayona Vidyate. Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam principle does not apply to practitioners of pure devotional service. This is what Varadaraj told Ramanujacharya also. Antima Smriti Varjanam. This Antima Smriti principle of Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam, this does not apply to devotees. The principle that applies to devotees is Neha Vikramana Shosti Pratyavayana Vidyate. But you can take a pastime and come to such conclusions. This is applying Shushka Tarka or Pratyaksha based Anuman to Shastric pastimes, which can be wrong. And another example from Chaitanya Charitamrita is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya and performed Shraddha for his father. So therefore, all devotees should go and perform Shraddha to their forefathers, Gaya or something like that. This is another often. So, but if you go to this particular pastime in Chaitanya Bhagavat and see the commentary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to it, he gives a totally opposite pastime to lesson to this. He says this was just to bewilder the smartas, like that. So therefore, as far as possible, we should try to stick to the lessons which the acharyas give, until we develop that very strong sense of Shastra Yukti by uh, understanding the scriptures properly. And that we can develop only if we, with great adoration and respect, we try to understand each and everything through the words of the Acharyas. Anything, okay, let us see what the Acharya says. Any doubt, okay, if the Acharya says something, let us see what the Acharya says. But if we try to ourselves speculate, then it becomes a habit. Then what happens? We tend to use our experiential logic in trying to, join the dots uh, in a pastime. But the problem is that there is more than one way to join the dots, and we may join it using our material logic. That is one way of joining the dots, and it may seem very logical, but it may not fit in the logic of the Shastras. It may not fit in the Shastra Yukti. Then it becomes a problem, actually. Is that okay, Mate?
Yes, yes. So I was just also remembering that maybe in this case it is not exclusively mentioned whether uh, uh, Devanand Pandit begged for forgiveness or not, and Mahaprabhu forgave. Kind of
Mhm.
seems that like this, but also we have example of Shri Shachi Mata uh, who offended Advaita Acharya, and Mahaprabhu was very particular that she
Particular,
should get
yeah,
that
yeah,
from
correct.
his
I
feet
think I
only.
think when Advaita Acharya fainted or something at that time,
Yes,
immediately he told, go and take the dust from his feet,
yes,
like that. Right?
yes.
Yeah, yeah, he
So
was very
that is
particular. Correct,
also
correct.
particular on this.
Yeah,
Prabhuji,
yeah,
can I ask one
yeah,
follow-up
yes,
question to this?
yeah.
Uh, so Prabhuji, yes, we definitely agree that we follow the acharyas and whatever lessons they give uh, because they are being revealed to them. So we
Yeah.
accept them. We are not as advanced, definitely nothing, but to derive any lessons. Uh, is this only applicable for principles of um, devotion? Can there be, um, I mean, some life lessons, suppose,
Mm-hmm.
cannot be related to devotional circle, a person's devotional life as such. But some
Mm-hmm.
life lesson, can it not be understood by a person? Uh, like suppose you see there are so many scientists
Mm-hmm.
and they are being revealed so many things. As you see,
Mm-hmm.
Ramanujan. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so many things of mathematics were kind of revealed to him from within.
Mm-hmm.
Material things, not
Mm-hmm.
spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So, can there be certain things that a person just understands? Um, they are not devotional. Suppose, like in first canto, when Arjuna returns from Dwaraka and Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking him many questions. So
Mm-hmm.
one of that he says, "Are you morose because you were neglected and not treated properly because you stayed there for longer time
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Dwarka?"
yeah.
So something somebody thinks like, "Oh, one should be when one is as a guest when you go somewhere, you know, not related to Arjuna as such and nothing
Mm.
to do with Dwarka Vasis, but a
Oh,
general
yeah.
life lesson."
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
So, okay. Okay. I will define the scope. So here, um, this is a very clear case that Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking Arjuna that did you overstay your welcome is and you were mistreated because of that? Is that why you are feeling morose? So from this, you can and take that. Therefore, one should not overstay the welcome and give certain principles on uh, uh, you know going as a guest and receiving guests based on that. That is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. So this is,
Hmm.
this is not directly connected to the past time. But when you
Hmm.
say that, when you say Arjuna, you know, came back morose, uh, and probably because of this, you're speculating about the um, you know, about what Arjuna did. What Arjuna did is given, but why he did is speculated when it is not explicitly given. Like you are. So those kind of lessons we should not. Many
Mm,
times. You know, uh, I mean, many times. Whether Bhagavatam based or Ramayana based, like you see, the pastime is presented and so many lessons are there, but
mm,
many of the lessons are not. The Acharyas given lessons. They are life lessons. They are very
mm,
valid life lessons. But
mm,
whether the pastime itself communicates those life lessons, maybe not. So for the outsiders, it is okay. It
mm,
just gives them some sort of, it validates, it makes them feel that, oh look, these scriptures are very valid, they have many life lessons for us also. They are not just uh, they are not just you know mythological things. Uh, that
mm,
kind of you know trust in the shastras they may get. But the
mm,
problem is when with devotees, they will end up thinking that all these lessons are the acharya's lessons. So you know Wali jumped from here to there because of this only. Now they will naturally think that, oh, this must be an acharya's explanation, some of which may be, but many of which are not. So therefore, uh, then it becomes over a period of time, uh, then this becomes, no one reads what the acharyas give, and this becomes the standard textbook. And then the problem is, this is Acharya Vani. It becomes Acharya Vani. So then it becomes a problem for devotees, actually. So these things should be, one should be careful. Uh, so there is definitely, it's not that one cannot, there are life lessons, there are unlimited life lessons which are there in the purports also. And based on the example that you quoted, that Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking Arjuna, are you feeling morose because you overstayed and someone insulted you? So definitely here one can say that, oh, so therefore, whenever you go as a guest, it is not recommended that you overstay your welcome. It is better that you leave when they feel that, oh, you should have stayed at least for one more day. So when that is the case, you should leave. You know, is this mental speculation or philosophical speculation? This is certainly philosophical speculation. This is not mental speculation. But when you are when you are speculating about the past time, why he did what he did, why he spoke what he spoke, when it is not explicitly described by an acharya, when you start guessing that one, that becomes a guesswork only. That is not philosophical speculation. That is mental speculation.
mm. Yes, Babaji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else before we move forward? Yes, Vrajalila Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, you said that when we are reading, going into the Bhagavatam, and we should not do mental speculation.
Mhm,
And also, we have to always see what the Acharya says. But
mhm,
how to find out what the Acharyas say? Because we are not so well versed in so many Acharyas saying that. So only how to understand. Like Prabhupada's purport is clear, but we have to dig deep into that. But I
mhm,
am not at that level. So
mhm.
some doubt I may get, and how to go into that, how to know that acharyas, what do the acharya says, and it's a lesson or acharya's word, it is different. How to understand that?
Yeah. So this is a very good question, Mataji. Thank you for asking. Actually, uh, it is not that everything that the Acharya writes, we may be able to understand properly. The point may be the point he has presented may be deeper than what he thinks, what we think, or the point which he has made in the purport may be completely misunderstood by us also. And I think these two things are okay. The problem comes when it is not explicitly written and we assume something. That is a more deeper problem, because it becomes a habit. Because we know, because when this becomes a habit, when you are able to derive a lesson without referring to what the acharyas have written, when you become an expert in doing this, then it is easier to churn out lessons than make the hard work of trying to read the acharyas and understand what they are trying to say. So therefore, yes, your problem is a real problem, what you are mentioning, but it is a safer problem actually. You are reading the purport and Prabhupada seems to be telling something. So am I understanding the real depth of what Prabhupada is telling, or am I understanding it in a very shallow way? At least if you are understanding in a shallow way based on what Srila Prabhupada has given, that is still okay. Then when we hear from more advanced devotees, then they may present a deeper realization of the same point that Srila Prabhupada gives. That way, by hearing from advanced devotees, we will get deeper realized presentation of the points that the acharyas give. That is so, to understand something on a shallow level is still okay than to uh, understand the pastime in a way which is not at all presented by the acharya. So that is even more problematic. That's what I was saying. Is that relevant?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Right. Anything else before we move forward? Okay. If there is none, let us continue. So the next topic is a very important topic. How do we make ourselves immune to Vaishnava Ninda? What engenders immunity to Vaishnava Ninda? That is the culture of respect. Culture of respect makes a person immune to Vaishnava Ninda. So here it says that, however, in such bhakti, offense creates restriction. Offense generally stems from disrespect to the great devotees. Even though such devotees are difficult to see, many do exist. In order to avoid offenses to them, one should pay respects to all the living entities, thinking that the Lord is present in all of them. Without doing so, even worshipping the deity forms of the Lord will not give any result. So, actually, disrespect is the main cause of offenses. And we should not say, yeah, I do understand Vaishnavas should always be respected. I will never disrespect a Vaishnava and I will never offend a Vaishnava. I'll be very, very careful. But, but non-devotees and other such people, that is okay. That I can offend, right? That I can afford to be harsh towards them, disrespectful towards them. What to speak of non-devotees? Even inanimate objects, how we treat them. How we treat even inanimate objects, that actually determines our immunity towards Vaishnava Ninda. So many times we may, like for example, in the bathroom, we want to move the bucket. So we may move it with our feet rather than with our hands. So we may think that, oh, I am not doing any Vaishnava Ninda. That is true. but that probably is indicative of how much immunity we have to committing Vaishnava Ninda in future. Because these small things, uh, like what you could do with your hands, if you are choosing to do with your feet, that is probably an indication that indication of your general disrespectful disposition. And this general disrespectful disposition will carry over into the realm of, into the association of Vaishnavas also, sooner or later. Sooner or later. So therefore, how immune am I to committing Vaishnava Parad? We have to catch ourselves under normal circumstances. How do we do? While walking, just like that, we may kick a plant. We may just kick a plant. It is a very harmless thing. Anyone would do that. But but the plant is a living plant. Why am I causing unnecessary trouble to it? Is kicking a plant with feet, is that a respectful way of dealing with another living entity? So the more we start thinking in these lines, the more immune we are to committing Vaishnava Parad. Because disrespectful dealings outside the realm of Vaishnava's association cannot be stopped abruptly as soon as we enter the association of Vaishnavas. Just like I always give this example, someone who is running 100 meters race, sprint race. If you see, all those who participate in that 100 meters race, ideally they are judged only based on who touches the 100 meters mark first. But almost all of them, after they cross that 100 meters mark, they end up running another 15-20 meters easily. Why? Why don't they stop immediately at the 100th meter? Because the inertia of motion will carry them automatically for another 10-20 meters easily. And then even when they are consciously to stop themselves after the 100th meter, still they will not be able to stop themselves for another 15-20 meters because of the inertia of motion. Therefore, if we have the inertia of disrespect outside the realm of Vaishnavas, even though we may consciously try to stop ourselves as soon as we enter into the realm of Vaishnavas, it may not stop actually. So therefore, we have to cultivate a general disposition of respect. Day to day, how we deal with inanimate objects also, and how we deal with non-devotees. Someone who is our servant, how do we deal with him? He may be our servant. Okay. He may be paid for, cleaning our house, washing our utensils. But how do we treat him? He may be 1 or 2 years elder to us. Do we at least respectfully address him as Bhaiya or something like that? Even though you are paying him money, but that does not mean we can deal with him in a disrespectful way. But these are like litmus tests, where you deserve respect from the other party and you are not expected to give respect. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with that other person in such circumstances? You are not paying that person to show him respect. You are paying that person for his, and he is not paying you anything for showing respect. It is just a business relationship, but how do you deal with him? Like, I remember once, a few years back in the ashram, one devotee got a phone call. Uh, One devotee got a phone call, and on the other side was a person who was a telemarketer. He was a telemarketer, uh, and the telemarketer was trying to sell some insurance policy or something to the brahmachari. So what ideally he should have done? Sorry, I am not interested. Uh, Sorry, I am not interested. Uh, So he should have spoken like that and kept the phone. That is the bare minimum you can do, right? At least give them that respect. They are also doing it for earning some money so that they can they can run their family. So that is the purpose for which they are doing. This person, with absolutely no intention to purchase that this thing, he started sarcastically talking with them. uh, you know First sarcasm, then criticism. In that way, for 5 minutes he was just wasting the other person's time. And I told, why you're doing this? We also do the same thing. We Srila Prabhupada's books and approach other people who are seemingly non-interested. But just because you have Srila Prabhupada's book, uh, you think that they should give you respect for that. They are not interested. Okay, you may not be interested in getting their insurance policy, but that does not mean you take their time for granted, uh, and speak to them in such sarcastic, disrespectful way. So therefore, uh, if with ordinary things, ordinary situations, if we are catching ourselves acting in a disrespectful way, shows that our immunity for Vaishnava Aparad is very poor. We have very poor immunity to save ourselves from Vaishnava Aparad. So therefore, to develop a generic respectful disposition towards even inanimate objects is the beginning point. Like always, I've heard a few times actually, Radha Gopinath Prabhu share this example. Of course, this is a more deeper example, you know, that, this was very early days when Radha Gopinath Prabhu got the first opportunity to get into the altar to do some deity worship. And along with him, His Holiness Bhaktira Samrat Swami Maharaj was there. And, at that time, Devamrit Prabhu. So, Prabhuji, Radha Gopinath Prabhu, as soon as he got into the altar, Maharaj told, you can switch on the light. And in those days, the light switch were, at the bottom. They were foot switches. Okay. So Radha Gopinath Prabhu went and using his foot, he switched it on. And immediately he told, Bhaktira Samrat Maharaj told, no, not with your feet, with your hands. But he told Prabhu, but it is at the bottom. It is a foot switch. It is meant to be switched on and off using your feet, not using your and not using your hands. But he said, no, this is the altar of Krishna. If you can use your hands, you should use your hands. You cannot use your feet like that. So these are small things actually. So where art can be done using your hands, if you are using your feet to do it, then understand that our immunity for Vaishnava Aparad is very poor. We have very poor immunity for Vaishnava Aparad. Like many times, at least once or twice, I remember, the role the chatai roll, where in the kitchen for making the so that Vaishnavas can sit, the chatai roll before lunch. Once when Maharaj came, he found that some devotees were rolling out uh, that chatai using their feet. I mean, they are not kicking any Vaishnavas with their feet. It is just a chatai, but they use their feet to roll out that chatai, and Maharaj immediately stopped them, and he showed, I will show you how to it out. He sat on his hands and knees, and he literally rolled it uh, with great respect, because it is a place where the Vaishnavas are going to sit. Right? You cannot use your feet to do this. So these are things which we should be very careful to, and we should carefully observe. What is how are we dealing with things which may not be directly Vaishnavas, but they may have explicit connection with Krishna, or even with things which may not have explicit connection with Krishna. How do we deal with them? If we are not dealing with them respectfully, if we can afford to show more respect, but we are choosing not to show that much, then it means our immunity for Vaishnava Aparad is very poor. So that's what here he says. And uh, here, since he is the Supreme Lord, so Kapila then speaks in 6 verses, somewhat angrily out of affection, to benefit his devotee who does not respect all beings. In these verses, disrespect, disregard, hatred, and criticism are forbidden. This person performs imitation worship of my deity forms, uh, because he is not respecting other living entities. So if you can't respect other living entities, Krishna says, then your worship of my deity forms is false. Of course, he is speaking in a very harsh way to indicate that don't be disrespectful. But this does not mean that if you are a little bit disrespectful, then you should stop deity worship only. No, this is not what he is suggesting. Okay, and in a series of verses, he says, like for example, aham sarveshu bhuteshu bhutatma vastita sada tam avagnyaya mam martyah kurute archa vidambanam. Kapil Dev says, when you can't see that I, the soul of all beings, I am always there, situated in all beings. Why he is speaking like that? Because he says, and who disrespects me. And what is disrespecting the Lord? Means disrespecting that living entity. So, which means the bare minimum respect that he deserves, if you don't give, which means you are not seeing that the Lord as Paramatma is situated in his heart. So, if you can't see that, then he says, Kurute Archa Vidambanam. He says, he performs false worship of my deity forms. This is not true worship. Okay. So, and then he continues, Yomam Sarveshu Bhuteshu Santam Atmanam Ishwaram Hitva Archam Bhajate Maudyad Basmanyeva Juhoti Saha. He says that if you reject me, who is the Paramatma situated in all beings, what is rejecting the Paramatma? It means disrespecting other living entities. Okay. Then he says, your worship of deity is Basmanyeva Juhoti Saha. Is like offering oblations into, instead of offering oblations into fire, you're offering oblations into the ashes. It will not give any favorable result. Okay. So, like that. And then a series of verses, uh, there are a series of verses. Aham uchavachay dravyaihi kriyayotpannayanage Naivatushya archito archayam bhuta grama avamanina. O mother, I am not pleased with the person who criticizes other beings. He does not say other Vaishnavas. While worshipping my deity form with rites using various materials. He may use the best of the materials, best of the procedures, but if he is disrespectful to other living beings or even non-living dull matter, okay, that also is actually unfavorable. But so therefore, uh, when Rahuguna actually disrespected Jadabharat, actually it was not a serious mistake in one sense. Why? Because Rahuguna did not know Jadabharat was a Brahmana. He just looked like a Shudra only. And his body was so soiled that his Brahmin thread got so soiled. It looked black and it looked just like it was the color of his own body. He could not even see a Brahmin thread because it had become so dirty. And Brahmanas are generally very clean. So therefore he got shocked. Oh, there were no visible symptoms of his being a Brahmana and a Vaishnava till Jadabharat actually spoke. So he thought he was just a person meant to carry the palanquin, and he was not doing it properly. So therefore he realized this mistake and he spoke this verse. Namo mahadbhyostu namo shishubhyo namo yuvabhyo nama avatubhyah ye brahmanagam avaduta lingas charanti tebhya shivamastu rajñam. So he says that I offer my respects to great devotees, okay, and to babies also, because when they are babies, we may not see whether how great they are. But I understand one thing, that I should be very determined to show respect to everyone. I will show respect to the babies. I will show respect to the youths. I will show respect to, because um, they could be babies in the form of the four Kumaras. They were like babies, but still they were very exalted. They could be youths like Dhruva Maharaj, or young boys like Dhruva Maharaj. I offer respects to the Brahmanas who wander this earth in the dress of Avadutas. I don't know how many more Brahmanas I disrespected because they were dressed like you in the form of an Avaduta. Like that, he was offering his prayers. Okay. So, therefore, one should learn to respect everyone. So, if we can't respect everyone, then there is a very good chance that we will not appropriately respect the Vaishnavas also. It is not possible actually. Because the generic disrespectful disposition will seep into, will percolate into the Vaishnava Sangha also. Like that. So, but show respect to everyone does not mean we show the same respect to everyone. That is another extreme. I will show the same respect that I show to my Guru Maharaj. I will show the same respect to a beginner Vaishnava. That is also not correct. Sakale samman korite shakati deho nata jata jata. Tabe to gaibo harinama suke aparada habe hata. So he says, Sakale samman korite shakati. Oh my dear Lord Master, please give me the strength to respect everyone. Sakale samman korite shakati deho. But jata jata. Jata jata means as it is proper. So which means not only should you give me the intelligence to respect every living entity or the inspiration to respect every entity, but you should also give me um, the intelligence to properly respect. How much respect should be given to whom, that you should show. So that is why immediately after discussing this, Kapila Dev gives uh, you know a gradation in the development of consciousness from absolute non-living immovable things to human beings, and within human beings brahmanas, and he gives gradations within brahmanas, and then finally Vaishnavas, you know like that. He gives gradations, and according to these gradations one should show respect. Okay, so that does not mean tomorrow you start walking with your hands on the road instead of feet. Okay, no, that is not the case. you know we can walk with our feet. That is why Mahajano Yena Gatasya Panta. You learn from how the Acharyas have done. They have walked with their feet only. They have not tried to walk with their hands. But when Ramanujacharya wanted to climb Tirumala hill, he tried to climb on his hands and knees. He would not put his foot down. Okay. But under normal circumstances, he did walk with his feet only. Right? So we try to learn the gradations, and according to that gradation, whatever respect is fitting to that particular living entity, that much respect we should give. So sometimes people say that trees and plants are also living entities. So how do you know, their branches and leaves are like limbs of the tree. So how could you cut off their limbs and eat? So we don't say that uh, we don't say that we do not uh, cause violence to any living entity. So what we say is na ati himsrena. That is the teachings of the scriptures. Na ati himsrena means one should not cause more violence than what is necessary. So trees and plants are some of the lowest, are amongst living entities. They have the lowest developed consciousness. They have the lowest level of developed consciousness. So therefore, for human beings, the Shastras do recommend that they can be eaten. So therefore, we don't try to stretch the whole thing of non-violence, but the more their um, um, consciousness is evolved, uh, the manifestation of respect should be more pronounced. So like that. So that way he gives a gradation, amongst superior to the trees are those beings with taste sensation. Superior to them are those with a sense of smell also. Superior to them are those which can hear also, like that. And then finally, so superior to the animals with four legs are the human beings. And amongst them, those who follow Varnashrama are better. Amongst the Varnas, Brahmanas are better. Amongst Brahmanas, those who know the Vedas are better. Amongst those who know the Vedas, if he knows the meaning of the Vedas also, he is still better. Amongst those who know the meaning of the Vedas, if he can use the meanings to resolve doubts, practical doubts, then he is still better. Someone may be able to resolve doubts, but if he still practices his own duties perfectly, then he is still better. Then, if by practicing those duties, if his heart has become cleansed, and if he has developed knowledge, he is still better. Uh, so like that, this kind of gradation is given, and finally he says, but the greatest is the Vaishnava who has developed attraction to Krishna, like that. So So like that. So um, so the respect should be given according to this development of consciousness, uh, like that. So therefore, this is the point that we should try to develop a generic disposition of respect towards every living entity. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions based on what we have discussed till now before we move forward? About, we discussed about, you know, developing a generic respectful disposition as and the for immunity towards Vaishnava Ninda. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add? Okay, if there is none, then we will continue our discussion. So one last topic, which subtopic, which I want to cover in this is Srila Ramanujacharya has spoken about 12 different ways, I think 12, right? Yeah, 12 different ways in which we are prone to commit offenses, but we are not supposed to. Okay. Different ways in which we are most prone to commit Vaishnava Ninda, but we should not. He says the first is Janma Nirupana. Janma Nirupana means respecting or disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his high or low birth. Okay. So if they were born in a high family and you give them more respect because of that high birth, then there is a very good chance that we may disrespect a person, another Vaishnava who may be spiritually equally or more qualified, but may not be born in a in such high birth. Okay, so this is Janma Nirupana. Second is called as Sharira Nirupana, to disrespect someone because of his body. Like I would say, I think personalities like uh, you know Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj must be better devotees than Hanumanji and Garuda, because at least they have a human birth, they have a human body. Okay, no. So therefore, seeing in this way is also offensive. One should not see in this way. Third is called as Bhava Nirupana, or Bhava Nirupana. I don't know exactly this. I will try to find out. To consider someone unqualified for bhakti because of his age, like Dhruva Maharaj. Oh, he was just 5 years old. Whatever he spoke cannot be taken very seriously. Okay, one should not. So this is again an offense. Fourth is Ashrama Nirupana. To consider someone unqualified for bhakti because of his ashrama. Okay, so this actually, you know this story, you must have heard it from Maharaj many times, that Dhanurdas was a very exalted devotee of Ramanujacharya, but he was a grihastha. But Ramanujacharya allowed him to stay with his wife uh, in his own ashram. So but they would always criticize Dhanurdas. Oh, see, he is such an attached householder like that. And then you all know the story about how once Ramanujacharya, when the brahmacharis had gone for Madhukari, he stole some of their dhotis, kaupins like that. And when they came back, they became so upset and so disturbed. And then that day night, he keeps Dhanurdas, and he's speaking Krishna Katha to Dhanurdas for a long time. And he had told his brahmachari disciples to go and steal some jewels from his wife, and he sent them to observe what Dhanurdas speaks to his wife. And Dhanurdas shows absolute detachment. He said, "Why did you move? If you had not moved, and if you had stayed still, they could have taken the other jewels also. And after all, the brahmacharis are only taking, they will use it for Krishna's service only. So by moving, you have, we lost the opportunity to serve Guru and Krishna." Like that, he was chastising her. Then they realize, oh, despite being a grahastha, he's very, very advanced. Like that. So this is ashrama nirupan, to consider some qualified for bhakti because of his ashrama. Fifth is called as avayava nirupan, disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his bodily deformities. Vapushascha doshaihi, as Rupa Goswami says. But Rupa Goswami himself, incidentally, and without knowledge, you all know this story, he laughed at a Vaishnava. He had his eyes closed and he was meditating on he was meditating on the on one of pastimes of Krishna, Radharani with Krishna, and he was laughing. And incidentally, a Vaishnava crossed that way, and he was limping. He had a bodily deformity, and the Vaishnava thought that, oh, maybe Rupa Goswami is laughing at my deformity, and he felt bad. And immediately, because of that, Rupa Goswami's meditation broke. And then, of what happened later, you all know. So then there is another thing is called as alasya nirvana, which means to disrespect someone because of his habits. Okay, it may not be good habits, but still, if he is sincerely worshipping Krishna, Krishna says, Shipram bhavati dharmatma shvat shantim nigacchati. Very soon he will become a dharmatma. But still we choose to judge that person, criticize that person on that count. Seventh is called as vasa nirupana. To consider someone unqualified for bhakti because of his not staying in a dham. So that is also not correct. The other person who is not staying in the dham may be carrying the dham in his heart. But just because he is not staying in the dham, if one considers that person to be not so qualified, that could be an offense. Eighth is bandhu nirupana, disrespecting a Vaishnava because of his being a family member. He may be our family member, but that does not give us the right to criticize and disrespect that person. That will also have an ill effect. Okay. Ninth is called as prakasha nirupana, to respect only one's guru and disrespect all others. This also from Ramanujacharya's story, I will cut the long story short. Ramanujacharya refused to go to the house of one of his very rich disciple because he did not welcome his disciples, even though he became extraordinarily happy and delighted hearing that Ramanujacharya was coming, but he did not properly welcome his disciples. So therefore, Ramanujacharya refused to go to his place. 10th is called as prakara nirupana, to respect only those close to the guru and disrespect all others. This is actually hero worship. Many times, this is not proper respect actually. If someone is able to respect only those who are close to the guru and disrespect all others, then kind of an attachment to the Vaishnavas is actually hero worship. It is not real appreciation of Vaishnava. And the 11th is called as Vartana Nirupan, to insult someone because of their occupation. And the 12th is called as Dosha Nirupan, finding fault even with Shastric characters. Oh, you see, Draupadi married 5 men, like that. So finding fault even with Shastric characters. Of course, if the Shastras themselves that this is a fault, hmm, or if Acharyas say, that is one thing. But if we ourselves say, look, uh, uh, Ramachandra is such a great person, even though he was a supreme lord, he had only one wife. But Draupadi, despite being a woman, she had 5 husbands. Like that, if someone comments, then that is called as Dosha Nirupana, finding fault even with Shastric characters, uh, like that. So this is some discussion about the first offense, which is Vaishnav Ninda. So before we wind up today's discussion, if there are any final comments, discussion points, questions, we can take. Anything? Anyone would like to share, ask, add? Okay. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. We will continue this discussion next Thursday. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Shri Harinam Chintamani ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.